When I was 21, I lived with my ex-boyfriend in Southern California. It was the first time in my life that I was on my own and had the freedom of being out from under the watchful eyes of my parents, which made me a bit reckless. We lived in what was considered to be a safe neighborhood. Nice houses lined the streets. Cal State University was nearby, and we rarely heard of violent crimes happening in the area. One late Friday night in July, at approximately 1 a.m., my boyfriend and I got bored and wanted to get out of our hot apartment. We decided to walk several blocks away to a lovely park that had an artificial lake where ducks and geese would gather. There were benches around the lake where you could sit and watch the water. The sky was clear, the moon was out, and it was a hot summer night in Orange County. The park was surrounded by an expanse of towering trees and thick bushes. My boyfriend was a naturally thin guy with long hair. I was 5'5" and weighed 100 pounds at the time. We sat on a bench to watch the rippling water as the moonlight reflected off its surface, with the trees and bushes at our backs. Out of nowhere, the bright headlights of a police cruiser came speeding through the adjacent parking lot, the vehicle's frame bouncing off the concrete speed bumps as red and blue lights flashed. It then came to a screeching stop, and a spotlight was shined into the trees. We both thought, "Shit, we aren't supposed to be here. The hell do we do?" We may or may not have been under the influence. This was remarkably bad timing. We knew the police saw us, so we just stayed because if we started running, we would risk being chased down and arrested. However, the cop didn't approach us right away. We looked on for a while and wondered, what the hell's going on over there? We thought maybe the officer caught a drug deal going down. We couldn't make out a whole lot through the trees. Eventually, the cop approached us. We thought for sure that we would get arrested or fined for being in the park while it was closed. What the officer told us was truly terrifying. He was doing a routine patrol when he spotted a man in the trees watching us. He then told us that since my boyfriend had long hair and was thin, the man hiding in the trees most likely assumed that we were both females, seeing us from behind. My boyfriend's ego was shattered. Once the cop saw that the stalker was slowly moving closer to us, that's when he decided to turn on his lights and rush in. What he found on the man was alarming. He found an arsenal of knives, handcuffs, zip ties, duct tape, and a gun. The kidnapper's field kit, basically. I was overwhelmed by fear. We were very lucky that the cop had seen him creeping around in the bushes, because it would not have ended well for us. We thanked the officer and proceeded to walk the few blocks back to our apartment in silence. I feel very lucky to be alive today, and we never returned to that park again. When I was 16, I frequently snuck out and explored abandoned buildings in my area and would do dumb teenager stuff with my two friends, Aaron and Tristan. We lived in a small town in Ireland. On this particular night, it was around 10 o'clock, and we had just finished up a 2-hour gaming session on Call of Duty. We had made plans to go explore an abandoned gas station we had recently discovered earlier that week. We arrived at the desolate gas station, which was located down an overgrown road that was so old that there wasn't even any streetlights on it. While we were walking up to the old building, Tristan saw a car sitting at the far end of the parking lot. It was an old gray Nissan. We wondered how it could have made it through the overgrown road. Tristan seemed on edge and asked if we should just go. Aaron teased him about being a little bitch, and I played along. But deep down, I felt that the car did seem a bit sketchy. We went over to inspect the old Nissan, and it appeared to be in surprisingly good condition. Looking back, that should have been our first red flag. We then made our way to the gas station. The front door and all the windows on the first and second floors were all boarded up. So we did a full 360 around the place, and found out that the back door had an old cheap lock keeping it closed. Aaron picked up a discarded fence post and hit the lock until it broke. As Aaron pushed open the door, a jingling sound echoed through the store. We all jumped back in surprise, but soon realized it was just one of those bell chains that go off when a door opens. We stepped inside and began poking around. The inside of the structure was underwhelming, with random debris lying here and there, and some old shelves that were once used for inventory. We saw all there was to see on the first floor, so we made our way upstairs. It was just one large office room with chairs, desks, and a large table that sat in the center of the room. Aaron took out 3 bottles of beer from his bag, and that's when we started to loosen up and pull some chairs together. After a little bit of drinking, our laughter was cut short by what we first thought were police sirens. But then we realized it was the alarm of the Nissan parked outside. I looked through the hole in one of the boarded windows to see a large, bald man standing beside the car. I dropped my bottle on the ground in shock. The bottle smashed against the floor, and the man turned his attention to the windows. We dropped to the floor and hid under the large table and waited for what felt like an hour until the alarm stopped. That's when we all heard the bells downstairs jingling as the door creaked open. I felt like my heart was going to burst out of my chest as we heard the man say,
"I know you're here."
He then started shouting threats, saying that we made a big mistake coming here and vandalizing his car. This confused us because we didn't do anything to his car whatsoever. We then heard the man's heavy footsteps slowly coming up the stairs. From our hiding spot, I got a good look at the man as he emerged. He was a fairly large man who looked like he could easily take on the 3 of us. He started scanning the room, and I remember him saying in a disturbing voice,
Come out, wherever you are."
The man began approaching the back of the table. Aaron then did something that caught everyone off guard. He leapt out from under the table and smashed his beer bottle over the man's head, causing him to collapse upon the floor. As he toppled over, a large knife fell from his hand. We ran as fast as we could out of that place, hearing heavy footsteps coming down the stairs as we did. We ran into the surrounding forest and made our way through the trees until we got back to my house. I never felt more grateful to be alive after I got back. It's been 2 years since that night, and I still don't know what would have happened if that unhinged man caught us. And I don't think I want to know. I grew up in a decent-sized town that was about 45 minutes to an hour away from the second biggest city in the state, known for its 3 rivers and many bridges. I am the youngest of 3 boys. My mother was the general manager at my grandfather's golf course, and my father was a lieutenant for the state police at the time. We were not well off, but we were far from poor. Cop Dad was hard on us when he needed to be, but me and my brothers learned to always be respectful no matter what. Due to some family drama I'd rather not get into, I've never been super close with my brothers or my parents. Despite that, I'll admit that this situation has made me appreciate my dad more. We seem to have only one thing in common. We would protect the ones that we love at all costs, even if that meant our lives. I had gone to the downtown area to hang out with my friends at a place that was about a half a mile away from the high school's football stadium. Since we were teenagers at the time, we all rode our bikes. After a while, I realized that my bike was missing. My friends and I checked around the immediate area, and after we came up empty, I called my dad, knowing that he was home from work. He drove down to where I was. We all figured he would be pissed at us, but surprisingly he wasn't. I guess he was in a good mood that day. All my friends got on their bikes and went off in different directions towards their own homes, saying that they would keep an eye out for my bike. As my dad and I were driving back home, we saw a group of 3, 2 males and 1 female, walking down a side street towards us. One of the males was pushing my bike as they walked, causing me to snap to attention and tell my dad, "Hey, they have my bike." My dad stopped immediately and pulled over, and we jump out. I laughed inside, watching my dad go full-blown hard-ass cop on the three delinquents. He had the girl and one of the guys stand against the wall with their noses touching it, and he slammed the other guy with the bike to the ground. I grabbed my bike and put it in the bed of my dad's truck. Since it was only 2 of us against 3, my dad told me, "Rick, get in the truck so they don't see your face." I responded, "Fuck that," and stubbornly stood there in full view until the cops came and arrested all 3 of them, a decision I would come to regret. Fast forward about 2 years later, I was 18, and I had returned home from military school. Some of the things I learned during my time there helped me out. One night I was out jogging around 6 p.m. when a car flew past me. It then slowed down and came to a halt at a stop sign down the road. Thinking that it was odd that the car was just sitting there, watching me, I memorized the car's details as best I could as I jogged past. My house happened to be on this street. As I approached my front door, the car finally continued down the street and moved slowly past my house. I didn't really think much of this. Perhaps someone was just lost or something. Fast forward to about a week later, and I was finishing up another jog. I walked into my house through the front door, which leads directly into the kitchen. The moment I walk over to the sink by the window to splash some cold water on my face, I hear a loud bang from outside, followed by 3 others in quick succession. Thanks to my background, I knew gunfire when I heard it, and I quickly dropped down and crawled to the door, grabbing one of my brother's baseball bats before running outside. Even though I knew a bat had 0 chance against a firearm, I guess I was hoping that I would surprise them and smash the shooter in the face before he had a chance to draw down. Once I was outside, I saw a pair of taillights disappearing down the street. I recognized the vehicle from a week earlier. Thankfully, no one else besides me was home at the time. In our town, word got around fast. My brothers joked around with me, asking me smart-ass questions like, "Did you try being a hero when no one else was around?" They thought I was crazy for running outside towards gunfire with nothing but a baseball bat. At the time, I couldn't provide a rational explanation for my actions. It wasn't until I saw a scene from a movie called Alpha Dogs that something clicked. In the film, the character of Jake Mazurski gets into a fight with Johnny Truelove. Johnny slams Jake into a glass table. After that, Jake goes into a ballistic rage and gets up and puts Johnny through a patio door before dunking his head into a swimming pool. Johnny's friends come and break up the fight. Then Johnny runs back into the house and grabs a gun and points it at Jake. Upon doing this, Jake Mazurski shouts,
"Oh, you point that thing at me, you better pull the fucking trigger. Oh, come on, you fucking pussy, do it!"
Jake's total disregard for his own life in the face of adversity seemed to be the same mindset I had the day my house was shot up. I'm the guy who runs towards death. It was about 2 or 3 days later when we received a call from the police. They informed us that they had caught the perpetrator. As it turns out, it was the same guy who stole my bike 2.5 years earlier. The guy had received 10 years for attempted murder with a firearm. I would later find out that he was released early. So we went on with our lives, and I became an EMT. When I was 26, I returned to my hometown to visit my parents. When I walked into the kitchen, there was a newspaper resting on a table, the front headline reading, "Local woman missing, vehicle found abandoned." As I started reading through the article, I almost immediately flipped over the kitchen table out of rage. According to the article, the missing woman's boyfriend was the same guy who had stolen my bike all those years ago and shot at my parents' house. He wasn't arrested or charged with any crime connected to the missing woman. From that day on, I always made sure I was carrying a pistol, except when I was on the job. I distanced myself from my family for a time, until I worked through some bouts of paranoia. But as they say, life goes on. I still work as an EMT to this day, and the guy who shot at my house is currently in prison on charges unrelated to the missing woman, who was found dead sometime later. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into this episode of Based on True Events. If you enjoyed these narrations and would like your story to be featured in this series, please send in your written experience to unit522stories@outlook.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, I'm your Uncle Unit. And as always, never forget